us as human beings, our job is to choose. That's why we're here. The universe isn't going to do that for you. Your guides aren't going to do that for you. If you're asking your guides, which way should I go? Who should I choose? What job should I take? What do you want?
After leaving the corporate 9-to-5 grind, I became the boss of my own spiritual business, helping others explore and navigate the human experience from insight, wisdom, and lessons learned along the way. Today, I help aspiring spiritual entrepreneurs gain the confidence to share their gifts with the world. Welcome to the Happy Healing Shop podcast. I'm your host, Trang Pham Nguyen, and each week we'll dive into incredible stories of strength, resilience, and transformation. So, if you are ready for some serious breakthroughs, laughs and tears, and stories that will inspire you, you are in the right place, my friend. Let's get started. Boy, do I have an exciting episode for you today. So normally with my guests, I have a rough outline of the questions I plan on asking them, but today shows the power of when you let a conversation flow and allow it to go to other topics than what you initially planned for. And it's funny now that I'm saying it out loud, but that can probably be a lesson on how to approach life too. What I thought would be a general interview on how my next guest got started on her journey, it took a completely different direction. It actually turned into why the heck you and I feel stuck in life, and also how and what it really means to truly surrender to the universe, like for real, and how to manifest and actually get it right. Because let's be honest, how many of us think of many things, do the vision board, but things don't seem to pan out or the needle doesn't seem to move at all, and it ends up being frustrating. And not gonna lie, in this episode, I felt like I was being called out, but I remember my mind being buzzing as my next guest kept talking and giving great advice that you can take away from today. In fact, you might want to re listen to this episode or take some notes. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to a past life reader and Akashic Records reader, Carolyn Costello. Hey, Carolyn, thanks for being here and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so how did you notice I guess you can say your psychic abilities start coming through, and like at what age? We'll start there.
Okay, so I first noticed things when, like, right after my mom passed away. That was when I was about 21. And so I grew up Christian, very devout, born again Christian. So any of this stuff was very taboo, but I always liked esoteric things, so I always had this kind of feeling of like, ooh, I'm being bad. Can't watch Charm, not good. So basically after she passed, I went through that whole thing of like, I'm angry at God, I don't want anything to do with any of that stuff. And so it kind of gave me an opportunity to be open to other things. And I realized how easy some of those things were for me, but I didn't really understand exactly how easy that stuff was for me until much later on. But that's really when it first started for me. I got my first tarot deck and I kind of played with that for a really long time. So yeah, that's when it first kind of had a idea about it. And it actually transformed into an understanding of clairsentience for me. I didn't know that that's what it was because back then the internet had nothing on empaths, like literally nothing. I felt like I was all alone. Now it's like everywhere.
Yep.
So I didn't really know what I was looking for. Basically, I really had this moment of like, wow, okay, something's different here. It was a job that I had maybe like 2 years after my mom passed. And I had a coworker that had gotten a phone call for something happening with her parent or grandparent or something like that in the middle of working. I didn't know her at all. And typically when I don't really know people, like I'm like, oh, I sympathize with you, but like I'm not feeling what you're feeling.
Right.
That moment, her grief was so profound that like I felt like I wanted to cry. And I was like, whoa, what is happening to me? I'm not feeling good right now and I don't get it. I went home and I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? and lo and behold, it's just my psychic ability starting to develop because I am now open to them. And I didn't know that.
Did you have any other abilities that started kicking in as well? The other clairs?
Actually really stayed clairsentience for a long time. And mostly because of like denial, like plausible deniability. And I think a lot of people have that. Clairvoyance would happen. I'm like, oh, I just have really broad imagination. You'd have clairaudience happening, but it sounds like you. So I could like just say, oh, it's just like weird thoughts I'm having, stuff like that. And downloads of information, coincidence. I could just say, oh, that's a coincidence that I happen to know that. Maybe I learned it somewhere before. It's like you want to explain it away, but I feel like with the clairsentience one, it's so physical, it feels so real. It's so hard to deny that one, especially when it's so powerful. So I think a lot of people actually start there and they don't recognize that they have that.
Yeah, how did you pick up where you're thinking, "Oh, maybe I'm too sensitive and emotional," versus, "Oh, I think I'm actually tuning in with someone's energy." And I think that's something a lot of people have, a problem with or, like, a struggle with.
Okay. So the thing that really brought this home for me that I really couldn't say like, oh, well, that I'm just having sympathy because I'm going through this and I'm just like seeing that, right? It was the fact that I didn't like this one moment, I didn't know this girl and I was like perfectly happy, perfectly fine, like la di da, just got to work. I was like wide eyed and bushy tailed, talking to a friend of mine, and then it like came in a wave, like crashed over me, and instantly I was overwhelmed by this feeling. And right, like as that was happening, the girl kind of was like audibly crying, right? So kind of simultaneously happened, and I noticed that. I was like, what's happening over there? And the girl was like, I don't know, let me go find out. So she goes, because I was basically new, and she goes to find out. She comes back and she tells me that she got some really bad news, and I was like, oh, that's really weird that I would feel like, I don't know.
Like a
It didn't
drastic reaction change.
Right. So you can tell that it's not yours if like 1 minute you're fine and then the next minute you're just like totally different than what you felt. Now a lot of times clairsentience is subtle. So at first you're not going to notice the subtleties. That's where the practice and the development come in. It's when you're having these like sort of like bigger moments, this sort of uh, huge experience. So when someone else is feeling a huge emotion, and typically happiness is not one that people pick up on because we all like happiness. So we're just like, oh yeah, I'm just happy. I like this. You don't look into that. So when somebody's like really angry or really sad, that's more jarring. It's like, whoa, I don't want to feel that. Where is this coming from?
Yeah, and how did you start realizing you can channel past lives? That's a bit different.
Yes. So that actually came about by accident. That was, I think, so I was with one of my best friends at the time, and we had just come from the spiritual circle that we attended once a month. And I was driving her home, and we were just parked talking about everything that we just like saw and was learning and everything. And I am a verbal processor. So I have to talk about everything that's like I'm feeling and I'm thinking so that I'm regulated. And she just loved it because like all kinds of craziness would come out, especially when I was in that energy, high vibrational energy. So she was asking me a question about her and someone that I think she was seeing. Anyway, it was a connection between her and someone else. And so I was just trying to look at, like in my mind's eye, the two people together and trying to feel into their energy and see if I could pick up anything. And then all of a sudden, in my imagination of these two people I saw this line come across the two of them. I was like, whoa, what is that? And she's like, yeah, what is that? Ask. So she's wanting me to ask what the line is. And then I'm like, well, it feels like a soulmate connection. And she was like, so interested, like, oh, that's so cool. And I was looking at this. And as I'm looking at it, these little notches started showing up on the line. And I was like, whoa, there's like these notches showing up on the line. I don't know what that is. She's like, ask. So I was like, okay. So I'm like, what are these notches? And I could hear my higher self or my guides, whoever it was at the time. They were like, these are how many lives that they have spent together on earth. I was like, whoa, that's so cool. And then as I was like kind of still looking at that, they started turning different colors. She was like, what do the colors mean? And, I was telling her about those things. And then all of a sudden, one of them started getting bigger and it was like it was coming towards me. And I was like, whoa, like what is happening here? And it kind of enveloped me. And it was this sort of vision of this past life between the two of them. And it outlined problems that they were having in that moment. It was crazy. And she was like, that explains so many things. Thank you so much. And she was like, what was that? I'm like, I don't know.
That's so funny. That was like your unintentional first client, I feel like client reading.
Yeah, it was. It was really cool. And so me and her, we would get together a lot and just kind of see what would happen. So that actually was a lot of the first developments of a lot of things that I learned how to do.
So with past life readings, I know for because some people they're new to it, and I can just see someone saying, "Why would getting a reading about my life 500 years ago actually help me?" So with your spiritual business and doing readings for people and rewind and how did you finally take the leap to do this type of work? Because I know it is not easy to finally say, I'm going to go for it.
Yes. So this happened for me in stages because I have a Taurus moon and I really like things to be sort of more planned. Although that doesn't always happen with the universe. Sometimes I get kicked out of the nest.
Oh, yeah, I
And I don't,
understand.
but so the way it happened for me is at the time that I was discovering this with my friend, I had a full-time job. And I was just kind of doing it for fun. I was so excited to do this. Like it was working on her. And I was like, I wonder if it'll work on other people. Like, I don't know if it's just because I'm close to you that this is happening, or if I could do this with somebody else that I know. So then I was asking people in the circle if they would let me sort of do this for them. And of course they were like, yeah, I want to be a guinea pig. Come on. So we would have these little parties where we would kind of like experiment. Some of our friends like to play tarot. So we would do sort of like a little bit of an exchange. And that happened for quite some time. And over that period of time, I really um, found a love for helping people through things because I could see what was happening by being able to tap into certain things and giving them clarity, not just with past lives, but like life questions and, just everything that they're going through. It was really fun. So then I would say for about a year from the summer of 2019 to the summer of 2020, my guides were in my ear every single day. You should get on TikTok. You should get on TikTok. You should get on TikTok. I was like, I don't know that I want to be on camera. It's like weird. Like now I'm on camera all the time, so it's fine. But I was very shy. And so for that whole year, I was kind of dabbling in charging from what I was doing because some of my friends were like, you're really good at this and you should not be doing this for free. And I was like, oh, that's so scary. I can't charge anybody anything. A lot of people feel that way. And, some people feel like this is a gift from God and I shouldn't have to charge for this. But my thing with that is like, it's a developed skill, just like anything else. Like your doctor charges you, your therapist charges you, your, uh, the mailman gets a salary. Like everybody gets paid for things that they have learned how to do, no matter how difficult somebody thinks that they are or how gift from God like they are, right? So that was something that I had to try to work through. I started out very low in what I charged, but it felt very high to me. And that was a good thing for me to do. And then over time, I raised my prices to a place where I felt really good with it. And then once I got onto TikTok, like it became a real business because people were like really wanting to book with me and stuff. And I don't really have anything. So I kind of just like threw something together. I didn't have like a real website or anything, just sort of like Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, that kind of stuff. And I was just like, well, just send me this and we'll meet at this time. I'll give you my phone number. Back then I was giving out my phone number. It was crazy. And so yeah, so that's kind of how it worked. Again, I just a lot of this stuff I kind of just fell into it rather than really like tried hard to make it happen. And a lot of that is, I know it doesn't happen like that for everyone, but I think when you really let yourself surrender to how something's going to move in your life, you tell the universe with your heart. You don't even have to be consciously thinking this. I really want that. I would love to have a business where I could do psychic readings, right? And you're not bitter about other people doing that is really helpful. It helps you grow. It helps you to really connect with your own experience with it. So that's really how it all started. And then it just kind of went crazy from there.
Well, it's crazy because when you said it was 2019, 2020,
Mhm.
that was right before pandemic and we were all shut down and everyone was probably just always on their phones online.
Mhm.
So that's insane that they're kind of giving you a heads up. And I like
Yeah.
how you're explaining how in the beginning, and I think a lot of people think when they have to start their own business, it has to be, I got to have a perfect website and all that kind of stuff. Honestly, same thing here. Started out scrappy. And it was okay. You know, I've seen people try to do readings and charging through Etsy because that's just a platform they can use to charge. But people wanted it and you're able to figure it out. What I loved what you just said was surrendering, which I know a lot of people have a hard time to do, especially when we're the planning type and
Mhm.
having not being, I remember, you saying how um in a reading, it's not being a controlling person, but being wanting to be in control of your circumstances. Because we always like to be prepared in case disaster happens. So how have you figured out, or maybe if you channel a message for someone else, like how to learn how to surrender?
One part would be faith. You have to really understand what faith is. And I think that's something that a lot of people try to understand, obviously, because there's so many religions, so many different ways of having faith. And I really want to tackle it in a very general but specific way where you could really apply it to any religion. Because the universe doesn't care what you believe, like, not really, as long as you have faith, right? So that's the most important part, that you actually have it. So it's faith, surrender, which is also a very hard concept of surrendering, and choice, like understanding your role in the whole mechanism, right? Like the whole thing is just this like grand machine. Like that's what the universe is, this grand machine. And we're like the earth is one tiny little cell of the whole entire machine. And us in that tiny little cell are microscopic. And we have our own thing that we're meant to be doing here. And it's meant to be selfish. Like that's the thing that people have such a hard time with. Like it's so like you're meant to be selfish, not self-centered, totally different. Right? Being selfish is very different than being self-centered. And I think that's something that people really need to understand, right? And that's in choice. That's in all wrapped in that.
Yeah.
So there's these um, really, really important facets of how to create the life that you want to live. And there are general concepts to this, there's general ways of understanding how this works. And I think sometimes people just really have a hard time figuring out how their personal life fits into that mechanism. Right. And so then that's where personal readings kind of come in, where, if you're having a hard time figuring that out, that would be great. for people who are used to controlling their circumstances, like controlling their circumstances, like having that predictability, if you want to actively manifest wonderful things for yourself, you really have to find a way to let go of that. And the best way is to do that through a sense of faith. Um, so, learning about law of attraction, learning about source energy, really, because like I'm a very logically minded person. I really love science. And at the time that I was learning about law of attraction, I was also learning about um, quantum theory and like really kind of like out there scientific concepts. I am not good at math, so I don't understand most of it. But the parts that I could understand really aligned with what I understood about spirit, source energy. And so what that did was it helped me to develop my sense of faith. And what the sense of faith does is it takes you out of the role of the controlling factor, right? And over the years, what I have been able to channel, and this comes up in almost everyone's reading, is that it is not our job to figure out how to make something happen or when something is going to happen. And I think that's a big problem for a lot of people that like to be in control, because the how has been conditioned in us to have that be on our shoulders, right? So you think of little kids and they're like, well, I want to be a movie star. And the parents are like, well, how do you think that's going to happen? However, the universe provides it for me, right? And a lot of people have this disconnect between having full control and no control at all. It's sort of like bipolar, and that doesn't work either, right? So some people are like, I am surrendering and nothing's happening. It's like, but are you listening to the impulses? Are you listening to the inspired action? When you're feeling good and you're in alignment means that I'm being most authentic to myself and I'm having healthy boundaries for myself and I'm feeling good because that's there. You are able to receive the impulse of, oh, okay, go and do this, go and do that. Now, for people that really love control, the impulse that you receive to get your goal hardly ever makes sense. Hardly ever, especially for people that are trying to break their sense of control. So it's almost like the universe wants to help you get out of that. So most of the impulses that you will receive are like, you're driving home and the universe is like, hey, it would be really great if you went to the library right now. And you're like, I don't need a library book. I don't really need to read anything. I have a Kindle. Like, that doesn't really make sense. I'm not going to do that. But if you had gone to the library, maybe you would have met somebody that you really connected with and set you on a path to doing the thing that you want to do. You never know. Or you go to the library and you see a book that you've never come across before, and it enlightens you to a whole bunch of other things that are possible for you. So it's like you've got to be in this place of openness to what is coming in. That is surrender. Surrender is accepting my job is to choose what I want and allow the universe to bring it to me. And when it comes to me, I'm going to accept it and keep going with that, right? I'm going to accept it. I'm going to make my next choice, and then it's going to happen all over again. And the timing of that is so much easier now than it ever has been. Like hundreds of years prior, like things happen so slowly. And that's even written about. Like, we know, it's common knowledge. We know that everything happened so slowly before. The reason that everything's happening so fast now is because we're in this heightened time of change. So because change happens so fast, because it's uncomfortable, we're all like, I want this to happen really, really fast. Collectively, we're all asking for that. So we have this understanding that I need to do things quickly. So when you're asking for something, you want it to happen tomorrow. Like, hey, the new moon was last Tuesday. I don't know why I don't have my stuff today. And so we get disheartened because either it's not here yet, or we receive what I like to consider breadcrumbs. Sometimes the universe will send us a small display of a bigger thing that we're asking for, to say, hey, look, I haven't forgotten about you. It's coming. This is a little piece of it, or a little representation of it, just to hold you over, so you know. But the big thing is coming later. But we're not able to kind of download that conversation. So we're like, oh, this isn't what I wanted. We get upset and we try to redirect. We try to then take control of what's happening and force our will on how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen. And all that does is it just eliminates so many options for the universe to bring you something, because you're not open. It sounds like easy, but I think sometimes it's really complicated, especially for people that like to have that sense of control, because it feels like you're just floating in nothing. So you're telling me, I tell the universe that I want this really successful job in this career that I've always wanted. That's all I have to do. And then I just forget about it. That doesn't really make sense, right? And that's not really what it is. It's holding your goal in your heart and the faith that the universe is going to provide that for you. You don't know how, and you don't know when. And the people around you are probably going to say, hey, you're pretty delusional if you don't know how something's going to happen and you don't know when it's going to happen, but you're like sure that it's going to happen. I don't understand that. So those people are usually the people that are completing many different goals. They're like flying through life. And we're looking at them like, what the heck are you doing? They're just not as controlling of their circumstances. And I think a lot of times for people that are controlling of their circumstances, they've been through experiences that have told them, you did do that, you had a goal in mind, and it didn't turn out how you wanted it to. So now you can't actually trust the universe. You can't trust yourself. So I don't know what you're going to do. And you just scramble around and you try to make something happen. And sometimes it does work out, because somewhere along the line, you end up surrendering a little bit somewhere. And then the universe has like this small little window to stuff something through, and it works. And then you're validated and you say, oh, okay, when I control things, things happen for me. It just takes a while. It takes the grind. I just got to grind. And that really isn't it either. It's more about being honest with yourself about what you really do want. Because the universe is only interested in bringing you what you actually want. And sometimes people think what they want is the big house and all the money and the yacht and the friends and this and that. When in reality, you just want to be safe and stable and satisfied. So if you were able to kind of strip yourself of what other people think about you and really just focus in on what you actually want in life, you would just have it.
Wow. I feel like that's it. That's done with the podcast. That was such like a very big message. And because it's come up in my reading, and when you said it came up for everyone else, most people's readings, it just you're able to explain a way that is very understandable and tangible in life instead of keeping it fluffy, which is what I've seen where they say, just ask for your highest good. And you're like, I need something tangible bit to understand the example of how we are walking around in life the wrong way. Um,
Right. It comes from the fact that I'm a very logical person. Like I always have been, but I really love spiritual things. And it's like people wouldn't really put those two things together. It's sort of I'm able to take both worlds and make that bridge for people so that they can actually understand, like, okay, what are the steps that I need to do? Because that's what everybody's asking for. What are the steps?
yeah.
And there are steps. It's just more nuanced for the person. So if you're speaking generally, you kind of do have to be a little bit more general. Now, I was speaking directly to control freaks. Control freaks, that's exactly what you have to do. Now, someone else that isn't necessarily a huge control freak, the way that they go about their manifesting and surrendering and things like that might be a little bit different. So if they go about the way of doing this, um, most of it might work, but they might find some frustration with a few parts of it because it just doesn't resonate with who they are. And that's why I love personal readings so much, because I'm able to connect with that one person, and their guides are like, okay, so this person does X, Y, and Z. And then I connect with somebody else and they're like, okay, this person does A, B, and C. And so we're able to kind of custom make a plan for them that makes all of the intuitive, I don't know what they're talking about, confusing things just out the window. And now I know what I need to do.
Yeah, and I like how you were saying you kind of really validate for the control freaks, about how, when things aren't happening, then we revert back to it's like you read our minds. Like we revert back to like, see, this is why it doesn't work. And I'm just gonna go back to my old ways and plan, plan, plan. And
Yes,
because if I plan, it should result me in XYZ. If I work hard in this, it should result in XYZ.
right. When the faith doesn't pan out, they're like, "Look, I'm gonna dip my big toe in the pool of faith, and when it doesn't come back with a result that I want, I'm going to have that validation of like, that is not the way to go. I need to be logical, logical, logical. That's only the way that works. That's the only way that has ever worked. But it's such a grind. It's so hard because you're working out of the not self body. Like that isn't you. That's not authentic to you. Us as human beings, our job is to choose. That's why we're here. The universe isn't going to do that for you. Your guides aren't going to do that for you. If you're asking your guides, which way should I go? Who should I choose? What job should I take? What do you want? Right. And so you end up going back and forth with your guides and you feel like nobody's listening. It feels like you're being abandoned. It's only because your guides cannot answer that question for you. That's not why they're there. That's not why you're here. You're here to choose and then allow it to unfold in your life. It's such a beautiful game. And the thing is that we don't know that when we come here. And that is 100% on purpose. And the reason for that is because every single person, every living being that is here has already gotten to such a level of understanding our universe that the only way that this would be fun at all is for us to not know anything about it.
It's hard.
I know. But like, think about it this way. If your guides were to tell you, if you were to say like, okay, I'd really love to be a famous podcaster. That would be so fun for me. I would love to do that. And your guides were like, okay, do like laid it out for you. Okay, follow this, do that, the other thing. Oh, you're also going to want, besides being a podcaster, you're also going to want this, and you're also going to want this, you're also going to want that. And if it's all laid out for you, everything that you could ever want, there's nothing for you to do other than live it. So boring. That would be so boring. It's almost like you're living someone else's life. What's the point of being here? So because we don't know anything, and because our job is to choose, we don't know what the next thing is that we're going to get to choose. We don't know what we're going to face tomorrow, the next day, a year from now. And so Earth gets to be whatever we want it to be. It's not
Yeah.
planned, no? And the assistance is always there for you when you finally do choose. And I have experienced this in my own life so intensely. When I feel like crap, it's because either I'm not letting the universe help me or I'm not choosing. Like I'm just flat out not choosing something because I don't want to. Maybe there's a choice in front of me that I feel like is impossible for me to make. Because if I choose what I want, other people are going to be upset. If I choose what they want, I'm going to be upset. So now
Hmm.
I do. Oh, I'm not going to choose anything. So you sit down and you pout. And the universe is like, come on, you got to choose something. You got to choose something. And they encourage you. And sometimes that encouragement feels painful because they're pointing out to you how you're not operating optimally. Like, you're here to choose, do your purpose, do your purpose, do your purpose. And so you keep feeling this sort of like heaviness on your heart that you're not doing something, you're not making your choice. And a lot of times it's not even that obvious that you're not making a choice. You're just trying to keep the peace, or you're
Mm,
just trying to stay in a job because you need money for this or that or the other thing,
yeah.
right? It doesn't always come up as I'm not making a choice.
When you say not choosing, would that also be kind of like really setting the intention?
Well, yeah, yeah. Now sometimes there's like an overdoing it with that, I will say. So there's a difference between I'm choosing and I'm setting my intention and I'm having faith versus I need to remind the universe every single day about what I want. I have to write it down 3 times. And just to make sure that it is there, I'm making my intentions every single day so the universe knows exactly what I want. That's not faithful. Like, you're not trusting the universe to bring you what you want. And so there's an energy of doubt. When there's an energy of doubt, that's sort of like an energy to the universe. The translation is, I don't want to choose that. So there's like a miscommunication.
Yeah. And it
Because,
sounds like also like a pressure. Like, come
yes,
on, universe, give it to me. Um,
right. A lot of times that's about timing too. Like, you're not allowing the universe to do it in the perfect timing. Like, the universe could bring you what you want today, but it's not going to be exactly what you want. It's not going to be the full breadth of what you want. It's not going to be like the perfect, like, most delicious thing. Like, it's sort of like you could grab a cold sandwich out of the refrigerator, or you could let your partner cook a beautiful meal for you that takes like an hour. So if you just wait 1 hour, you will have like one of the most amazing tasting things you've ever experienced, or you can just have like your cold sandwich right now.
what in your business have you found that you've tried and you're like, this isn't working? And then other things that you've tried where, wow, this is it, I think. This is working for me.
So that is a kind of like a multifaceted question for me. So what I just said is one thing, like trying to rush information out. A lot of times I know things before they're going to happen. And a lot of times I'm like, maybe I just want that to happen just like everybody else does. Like, maybe that's not real. Maybe it is real. But then I get so excited about some stuff where they're like, that's definitely going to happen. I'm like, I have to talk about that right now. And the guides are like, just wait a little while. The momentum for that isn't quite here yet. So it'll feel janky. Like, I'll go to make a video and it doesn't feel like, it feels awkward. It feels forced. Like I'm trying to make something happen, right? Like I'm controlling the circumstances. And I don't allow myself to say, okay, I'm going to revisit this later. I'm not going to do this now. So that's one thing. The other thing is when we go through cycles, um, and I think people who are extra sensitive, people that have practiced their gifts, that are way more in tune with the waves. So everybody has their own waves. There's an up and there's a down. And this is all, it will happen over and over and over and over and over again in your life. Everybody's always like, oh, why me when they're in a down wave? That's a time for you to kind of collect more information about yourself, about what you want. Um, if you're not choosing again, right? um, so if you're in sort of like a down wave in your experience, your general journey, anything that you're trying to create or have momentum take off, it's just going to be harder. It's just going to not take off in the ways that you hope that it will. And it's not really a punishment. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just, again, it's about timing. And then once you're in the higher part of the wave, and again, if you're somebody that practices your gifts, you're more sensitive to the energies, you're going to tell when you're coming out of that wave. And again, you're going to want to rush it. Don't rush it. Be patient. Let it happen, because once you start coming up and you're in the top part of the wave, anything that you're creating is just going to take right off. And I know a lot of people find this to be kind of frightening. because we live in a society where you need to be productive all the time. Like, we don't allow for people to take, 2 weeks off a month if they have to, or a whole month off in a year if they have to. Um, as the way our normal society works. But I will tell you with full certainty that I have been through this a few times in my uh, time of being aware, having my own business, being in a low period. The universe will always provide for you. I have always made just enough. I mean, it wasn't a lot. I wasn't like going crazy with it, taking all kinds of vacations, buying stuff. Like, that wasn't my experience, but it wasn't meant to be my experience in those moments. It was time for me to reflect, go within, and really find what I was missing. What am I meant to see in this moment? And it's hard because in those times, it's like you are just with you. There's really no distractions. There's no ability for you to just like look away from the pain. It's just like it's always there in your face. And anxiety about money and stability just kind of amplify that. So, again, this is where faith comes in. It's really important for us in our businesses when we're trying to make something happen, whether it's a creative project, whether it's an actual business or school, whatever it may be, for you to remember, I need to surrender, make a choice and surrender, make a choice and surrender, and be open to what comes up. Now, a lot of times when we're struggling in any of these areas, we'll have things come up for us to see. But again, it's not what we want to see, because we want the momentum. Like, where's the momentum? I'm looking for momentum. And the universe is like, that's not for now. This is for now. If you look at this, it will lead you to that. And we don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
I just face through this terrible part of my life and get back into the flow. And it's really important. Another thing that's really important is to not take responsibility or blame that is where you're at, because so many of us do that. It's like, oh, I'm not doing well because I didn't do this and I didn't do that. And you try to find the reason that things aren't working out for you. It's all energetic. And if you are confused, and I just was telling a client this today, if you are confused about any part of your journey, ask the universe, show me what I'm not seeing. Show me how to get out of this. Show me how to get to this goal. Tell me how to do this, right? The universe, the guides, they're our servants, right? If you want to think about it that way. We are the conductor. We're the one that is making all the choices. And they're the ones that go get the stuff and bring it to us. Go get the opportunities and bring it to us. Go get the people and bring it to us. And it's up to us to listen to our employees, have our ears open for, okay, you're bringing me this plan. You only have so many parts of it. I'll do what you're saying. And I will trust that you know where this is going, because I'm not going to micromanage you. Again, this is our conditioning. We're conditioned to be this way, and to break out of that conditioning is so difficult. And that's the other thing, is like, if you're going on this journey of being self-employed, you realize you're not just breaking your own issues, you're breaking generational issues, you're breaking cultural issues, you're breaking ancestral issues, collective issues as well. So no one is exempt from having the weight of everything on top, right? Like, we are born and bred to be good little workers, and that is not authentic. It's just not for everyone. Some people are exactly built for that, and that's wonderful. And they thrive. They really do. They thrive in that environment. But then there's a lot of other of us that are not meant for that environment. We're not meant to do that. That isn't our authentic purpose, which is another thing that I just love in the readings, is that, like, a lot of times the individual's purpose, why are you here? What are you here to do? is always so much more broad than people think it is. Like people think, oh, I'm here to be a nurse at this hospital at this time. And that's not how it is. That's a choice, right? So that person's broad purpose, like their actual purpose, is probably to be a healer. And the way that they want to accomplish that is by being a nurse at that particular hospital doing that particular thing. Those are all the choices. So you kind of come with this broader,
Theme.
yeah. And then the specifics of that are your choice. Now, you do not have to do a career that is in the same vein as your purpose, because when you come here, you're doing your purpose, whether you know it or not. It's just inevitable. You can't not do your purpose. It's impossible. But when we find a career that aligns with our purpose, we have this overwhelming feeling of satisfaction. And then sometimes more controlling people end up clinging to that one job because it felt good in the beginning and now it's not anymore because you are supposed to change and evolve and do something more or different, right?
What has been the most rewarding about doing this type of work for you?
Um, I say this almost every single day to my guides, to the universe, to everything, and it just makes me so happy. My favorite thing, and the thing that I find the most rewarding about this, is when people get that click, that clarity. They come to me confused, depressed, sad, anxious, because they're not in their authentic expression. And then the universe comes in and gives me, like, their guides are like, okay, this is true, this is true, this is true, this is true. And I tell them, and they're like, oh, wow, yeah, I get that. And then they ask me questions about it, and we get more clarity, kind of just like our conversation here. And then at the end of the reading, I think about how they came to me, and I'm like, wow, you're like so different. And not just in their demeanor, but their energy completely changes. Like they come to me in one way, and it's almost like I can see it on them. And then when they leave it, they're like just this bright, shiny thing that's like, I'm ready to take on the whole world. It's so wonderful empowering people that way, because if everybody, I feel this very, very strongly, that if every single one of us on earth could just do our own thing, whatever is in our heart, our authentic expression, if every single one of us was just really in our own authentic expression, the things that we could do as a whole planet is just mind boggling. And these are things that I've already seen, things that we're going to accomplish, because we are going to get there one day. Probably not in the next 100 years, but who knows? Maybe. We're in a big, big transition right now. And what they showed me is that once we're all able to understand that living in our own personal authentic expression is of utmost importance, we get to then all come together and figure out our place in the universe. What is Earth compared to the universe? What's our place as Earth, as our solar system, to the rest of everything? Really interesting, really amazing. I'm excited for that. I really hope that I get to be in that. I'm pretty sure I will.
Wow. Yeah, that's insane. It'll take a while, but yes, when we
Yes.
get to that, I guess enlightenment mode is what I might call it. And like I can rewind a little bit here, but you know how in the beginning you were like, "Oh, I don't want to be on camera on TikTok." A lot of people when they start out their business, they have a hard time showing their face because it's awkward. We're not like the kids are just like, "I'm gonna be a YouTuber" naturally, right? So for people that are trying to start their business and they are really camera shy, what advice do you have for them or what helped you finally get on camera?
So this is the same advice that I have for anybody that finds anything difficult to do that they want to do, is like, I think people call it exposure therapy, where you just like expose yourself to something that's scary or uncomfortable enough times, you become used to it. So what I would say is for you to get your phone and make videos that you don't show anybody, and just get used to seeing your face in front of your own face and talking, having a conversation with yourself. Because when you are posting on social media, that really is all it is. Even when you're live, you're seeing comments, but when you're answering, you're just talking to yourself. Like there isn't another person there. So anything social media related, it's really just about getting comfortable seeing your own face while you're talking about something important. And I personally still don't like rewatching some of my videos. It's still really uncomfortable, but we're working through that part. But that's the part that doesn't really matter. It's about the recording of it and the editing of it. If you can get through that and post your video, that's really all it is. And then once you become comfortable enough, you relax and you get to a place where you're feeling more authentic in what you're saying. The reason that a lot of people don't like being on camera is because they tense up and they start doing that like sort of like awkward, like mechanical talking, or almost like they're reading from a script, and it doesn't feel natural, doesn't feel like them. So when they watch it back, they're like, oh, that's not me. Like that doesn't feel right, because they're feeling their own inauthenticity. So just getting familiar with it is going to solve so much of that. And especially in the beginning, I did like 20 different takes on every single video for at least the first like 3 months. So like giving yourself permission to just like mess up as you're doing it and saying, okay, well, I'll just scrap that one. I'll try again. And finding what method works for you. So for me, I can't go into a video without having some points. Like I
Same.
have to have like little bullet points. I'm sure you're probably the same way, right?
Yep.
Control. um, so if I have at least bullet points, then I can keep myself on track, because sometimes I'll be talking and then I'll just like kind of lose what I was saying. Cause I mean, sometimes we're channeling, and when the channel is like, okay, I'm done, and it's like ends abruptly, and you're like, wait, where was I? What was I saying?
Yeah.
That's awful. You don't want to be doing that. But you don't want to script out the whole thing, because then again, you're just like mechanically reading from a script. So it's sort of like the best of both worlds. So it's about developing your own sort of process. And there's all kinds of things on the internet that help people how to make videos, how to help yourself do it. Like if you are a script person, there's like apps that you can get that like do teleprompter things
Mhm.
that won't even show up in your video. It's like really good. So there's all kinds of stuff, but the main thing is just exposing yourself to the thing that frightens you the most, because you have to find a way to make the big scary monster a little mouse. Well, maybe that's not a great example, because sometimes people are afraid of mice, but like, it's not this big scary thing anymore. It's something that you can control, you can uh, you know, have power in. And that just literally goes for everything, everything, everything. The fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, the fear of exposure, being made fun of, being judged, so much of the time is what keeps us from following our dreams, from doing the thing that will satisfy us the most. So pushing yourself through that, being there for yourself, like take yourself along as your support buddy. Like literally talk, like say, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to be fine. I've got you. And you just be there for yourself, like how you would want someone else. It helps so much. I mean, it sounds kind of funny and it feels a little awkward at first, but again, it's just like anything else. You just have to get used to it.
Yeah, I was watching this YouTube video of a guy that pretty much recorded himself for 30 days straight. Just and there's prompts where like I think there was like a video creator coach, and he was giving him prompts like every day, here's talk about XYZ topic. Like, it could be like who is someone that influenced you or whatever, what your favorite dish is. And every day it was like a 3 to 5 minute video. Just record yourself. And you can see the progression of feeling more at ease because you've done it so many times. It's like, I know some people, they get really nervous with presentations, and the people that seem so naturally good at it, crack the jokes, they look like they're doing things on the fly. They've just rehearsed it so many times and done
Yes.
the same jokes. And so it looks natural, but most of us don't present on like a daily basis. So it's different. Even being on Zoom or like TikTok lives, right? It feels really awkward at first being like, I can't see anyone's faces, but they're just talking one. It feels I don't see it, but they're asking me questions. So I guess I'll just answer them, but look at myself. So yeah, that's what made me think of it when you were talking about exposure.
Exactly. And it's just like anything else, like when you're in school, you study for a test. So it's about learning information. Like people think that money is power. It isn't. It's information. Information is the greatest power that we will ever have. And the greatest power, the greatest information that you will ever have is the information about yourself. So learning how you learn, learning how you are comfortable, what makes you comfortable. If I'm in an uncomfortable situation, what do I need to help myself be comfortable? All of those things are going to help you in performing in areas that you don't feel comfortable in. And it's really important to know those things.
Yeah. So if someone wants to learn more about how they want to connect with themselves, their past lives, or their Akashic records, what advice do you have and what services and programs do you offer?
So if you want to connect with yourself more, um, I feel like it's probably a broken record. I think most people suggest this, but like meditation goes a long way. When we're in a meditative state, we are connecting back with our non-physical energy. So like I don't know if you've ever been in a meditative state where it kind of feels like your body feels like a little bit like jelly and you're like wah 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 wah, feeling
That's
like
usually
that.
when I'm about to wake up.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're falling asleep or when you're first waking up, you're automatically in a meditative state because sleep is a meditative state. You're just like way under, right? So when you're trying to connect with yourself for your gifts, for these things, meditation that's more conscious is going to be something that really helps open this up. And that's what really, I think, helped me the most in my development was practice, obviously, of actually doing the thing, but also connecting in with my higher self, the part of me that is in spirit. And the more you practice that, the more consistent you are with it, the better it's going to work for you. And a lot of people get frustrated because their mind starts to wander. Um, that's normal. It's going to happen. So the way you can combat that is by listening to like either a white noise or a brown noise, something that's not interesting. You want it to be just really flat, almost like what a vibration would sound like. And you just keep redirecting yourself back to the sound until you start getting a voice that doesn't sound like I'm thinking about my groceries or I'm thinking about my bills. This is talking to me about something else. And it's going to sound like your own voice if it's clairaudience, depending on other things. Maybe you're getting images or feelings about things, depending on what gift is strongest for you. Now, if you would like to develop these things, I do offer a mentorship. It's a 4-week mentorship where we do 4 one-on-one sessions for an hour where we kind of just really hone it in on if you're wanting to develop a certain ability, if you are wanting to develop a certain modality. There's a lot of different options, and we kind of go over that in the beginning before we even start. We kind of come up with a game plan. And then as the weeks go, there's going to be sort of like little homework things for you to do to develop whatever it is that we were able to talk about and bring to light in the one-on-one sessions. And then at the end, the last session, if it, depending on the person, because these are all going to be very custom to that person, but hopefully the last session will be something that we could use for you to practice. So essentially, like you would be reading for me in that last session, and then I would be helping you to kind of figure out what's happening with that as you're doing it, sort of giving you little pointers, or helping to explain something that you might be getting, or helping you pull something through if you are feeling something, sort of coaching in the moment.
And so where can people find you to sign up or to even get one-on-one readings with you?
Sure. So my website is eternalwonderland.com.
Awesome. I'm going to include all those down below in the show notes. So,
Awesome.
yes, thank you so much for this conversation and all the advice. I feel like you just channeled through and
Mhm.
that benefited, honestly, me a lot.
Sure.
And for what I've been going through. And also, I'm sure so many people that are listening in. That's it for today's episode. Wasn't that amazing and helpful? I hope you were able to take away some huge tips. And if you'd like to check out Carolyn's style of reading, I actually got a past life reading from her about 2 to 3 years ago, and I posted it online in the Trang Tries It video series on our YouTube channel. We also have more resources about all things spiritual on our website, including our blog, our online self study classes that you can go at your own pace on energy work and developing your intuition, and of course, our wonderful online community and events, which can be all found at thehappyhealingshop.com. I'll include all the links down below in the show notes, and share this with a friend who may find it helpful. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.